thought it might be me next, but thank goodness it is Giulia Palandri. I'm not sure, are you related to the wine family? I shouldn't even say that, should I? Giulia is from The Influencer Agency, and she has a very, very well-established reputation in the Perth advertising game, and most recently has become the GM of The Influencer Agency. So they have a focus on WA-based influencers and instigating digital campaigns using influencers. So please welcome Giulia Palandri to the stage. Watch this microphone, it's very tricky. There you go. I'll move the chairs out of your way too.
Okay. No, I might just sit.
Are you going to sit?
Chill. Yeah, I'll sit. Thanks for having me. I was at the back before, so I couldn't see any faces. So on this side, it's quite different. But thank you. I really appreciate being able to talk tonight about social influencers. Let's see if I can navigate this. So the Influencer Agency, just to provide you with some context as to why I'm up here. So the Influencer Agency is West Australia's first influencer marketing agency. So we focus predominantly on managing and promoting influencer marketing in WA. And we have a really strong focus on delivering strategy, accountability and measurement to influencer marketing. I think that's a really fundamental piece with engaging influencers because there's a lot of different perceptions about influencers. These are some of our clients, and there's a lot more on this list as well, but it was just about understanding who is engaging with WA influencers at the moment. And for those of you in the room, so again, just to provide a little bit more information about the Influencer Agency, so we provide an end-to-end service to clients who wish to navigate and engage in influencer marketing to amplify their brand messages. So it looks at really understanding more around the communication objective and looking at influencer marketing as a channel to connect with the audience that you're trying to engage with. Beyond that, it looks at the selection and management of brand-aligned influencers, the creation of content and reporting, because I think those things are quite fundamental when engaging with influencers because you've really got to close that gap. You need to understand what their value is and what value they bring to your businesses, and being able to see the content and report on the effectiveness of the content is really important. It's a really important piece of the process. So when I spoke to Ben, it was very much about just 10 minutes on influencer marketing. I don't know your level of understanding of influencer marketing, if any of you have actually engaged in influencer marketing or have considered influencer marketing before. Has anybody thought about it or thought about influencers, wanted to engage influencers? Yeah? Do you want to talk about how you've engaged or thought about engaging them?
Yeah, because you know Instagram at the moment, but
yeah.
It's kind of hit and miss and it's had a lot of fun on it. So
yeah.
How do you connect with agencies and sort of just go ahead and
Totally. So I think with what yourself from Ginger Bee was talking about before as well is looking at those opportunities to leverage. And if you can look at influencer marketing as a way to leverage, that's exactly what you want to do. You want to be able to leverage influencers because they have, they have the following. They have that level of engagement that as a business you want to have yourself. So it's about looking for influencers that can help drive that traffic or the interest on their page toward the page that you are creating yourself for the business. So bear with me. I'll go off course, whatever. It is what it is. I'd love you all to ask questions and, if there is anything that you want to find out about influencer marketing, just chime out and I'll be happy to stop. So does anybody in the room not know anything about influencer marketing? And please, okay, cool. All right, one. Anybody else? Anybody brave enough to say no idea? I got no idea what you're talking about. 101. All right, so influencer marketing really is about aligning with individuals, because they are people, who have spent a lot of years building an audience online. And with, as you all know, you all have access to so many different channels that you can use as a business. And you've got to think about which channels are right to invest in for your business. Influencer marketing might not be right for your business. But it is definitely a way to connect with audiences today because of the way that the landscape of media is changing and how people connect, how people engage, and what people choose to consume and where they're consuming it. So as much as we want to, I'm not saying we can't be ignorant toward it, but it is definitely a way, it's something that needs to be explored and considered going forward because it's just the way that it is. It is because of the way that people consume media. I hope I'm making sense. So influencer marketing is when a brand aligns with an individual or group of individuals that have a demonstrated influence online. And then these individuals are engaged to profile or align with activity that your brand has planned, and they'll develop content around that planned activity, or whether it's a product or a service or a campaign. There's got to be some sort of activity that they can align with and develop content around, and that's going to start conversations for your brand or your product amongst their pages or through their page, their social page. So why influencer marketing? Okay, so we've talked about, okay, does anybody not know anything about it? Who in the room has actually thought about engaging influencers to promote their brand or their service or their product? Anybody? Thought about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know how to start or
Yeah.
who to contact.
Okay.
And how to, do I give them one of my products
Mm-hmm.
or how does it work and are they
Yeah.
going to post at a certain time
Yeah.
when it's busy? So yeah, I don't know.
What is the product that you're selling?
Bridal accessories.
Okay, perfect. So that's a really good example. I think if you can think about, and I'll talk about this as well, I just tried to make this as simple as possible in that why influencer marketing, and I'll get back to you as well. You've got to be active where your consumers are active. If I was, okay, I don't even have a boyfriend. But if I was to think about getting married, where do you think where would I explore? Like, where would I go find inspiration? Like, where am I going to look to find out what, I don't know, what you're in the industry, like, what do you look for? Everything.
Pinterest or Instagram. You're
Totally.
looking at photos a lot.
Yeah. And where do you think you can find that?
Online.
Yeah. And more specifically, like, Instagram.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting in, with SEO and SEM, but the way that people change, what people are doing now today is looking at Instagram as a way to search. Like, they're searching through Instagram. They're looking at hashtags. They're looking at pictures because that's what people connect with. They want to see visual content. They want to see what they can achieve, whether it be, I can do that in 10 years' time or I can do that today. It's all different levels of what I don't know, people can look at. But Instagram is, it's perfect for you because it's that visual way that you can represent what you're trying to sell. And you're providing inspiration to potential clients or potential customers. So with influencer marketing, though, it's about finding out for you specifically who can you align with that can deliver that message for you. So is there an influencer out there that's actually going through the process of getting married? And can she then align with your brand and say, as I've gone through looking for bridal accessories, I've stumbled across XXX and I found this amazing headpiece that I'm going to wear at my wedding. And then people are like, yeah, I want that headpiece. Because that's what they do. And that's where it's at. Like it's in Instagram. It's on Instagram because it's visual. And it's not just Instagram. There are other social platforms that people obviously do engage with. But I would say with the way that Instagram is evolving today, it's where everyone is. So that's why I was looking at this particular piece and there's lots of stats and a friend of mine was like, stats mean nothing. I'm like, whatever. Stats do mean something.
What are your thoughts on YouTube?
From my perspective at TIA, we've got very much a local focus, right? So we're looking at engaging West Australian brands with West Australian influencers. WA doesn't have many like YouTube influence sensations.
No.
It's predominantly in America. And like it blows me away. Like what's with this unboxing thing? Like, what is unboxing? It's so random.
Like surprise toys.
Yeah, like unboxing, it just blows me away. But YouTube is really important because I think it's a platform that you all have access to as a business owner. It's free. So why can't you upload your content onto YouTube in any other way that you upload it onto your website, your Instagram page, your Facebook page? Use YouTube. Just do it. Like it's a free platform to use. So that would be my recommendation on YouTube. It doesn't necessarily, you're not having to align with influencers on YouTube, but just use it as a platform. No. No. So you can. So it depends on as well, like how sophisticated your back end is. So there's different ways that you can, and I'm moving to the second slide. There's so many ways that you can look at how you can close that loop to find out whether or not that influencer is actually effective for you. There's things that you can use codes, or you can use the swipe up functions in stories. You can use your URLs in the profile. There's lots of different ways that you can understand which influencer works right for you. But you've got to be very careful in that if you're only engaging a handful of influencers, it's just exposure. It's just talkability. It's just dialogue. If you're then expecting them to convert with a particular code, it's a really high expectation. So what I would recommend at that level, if you're just engaging a handful of influencers, which, like, let's face it, we're in WA, it's probably going to be like a small group of influencers. It's not about giving them unique codes. It's really just about them engaging with the brand and developing content for you that starts a conversation. So that's something different. But organically, that should really lead to traffic to your website and interest in your brand. So that's what you want to engage with influencers to create content on your behalf, start the conversation, and then that conversation is then going to lead people to be interested in your brand, and then they'll start seeking more information about your brand. So you've got to be careful as well in that when you start to engage influencers, you've got to be confident in that your profile itself is where you want it to be, because ultimately people are going to land on your profile. So influencers can only do so much. They can direct their traffic to your profile, but your profile has to be just as exciting because that's where they land. You've got to think about that too. And I know that Instagram and social media is a bit of a burden. It's a bit of a challenge. No one has that constant flow of content that they can use every day to keep up with the demand of the way that people consume media and content. But it's really important to sort of have everything in line and just be conscious of that. But you can also use those influencers to create the content, and then you can repurpose that content. So you can put that content on your page as well. So you're not then having to worry about all the content that you have to create. Engage other people to create the content for you. And then you hope that it has a flow-on effect, and then you've got all this content because everyone's tagging your product in their content. Then you can just repurpose that content. And you've got to remember as well that if people do that, you can then use that content because they're allowing you to. Even if it is just the fact that they've tagged you in it, that gives you license to then use that content. That's how Instagram works. Yeah. Yes?
This is a little bit complicated question. Complicated, but a little bit to it.
Yeah.
If B, for example, who was up there before, she's using all these different brands in her gift basket.
Yeah.
Can she then go and take their marketing content and then put all that together and then chuck that to an influencer, and then an influencer can put all that out?
Yeah, totally. So there's lots of different, I guess with the platform, there's lots of opportunities to publish the content, right? So they can either publish it permanently through their page, or they can do it on stories. And stories is temporary. Does everyone know about stories? Yeah. So there's two ways to go about it. You can post content. I mean, I would recommend that influencers create their own content because that's more, they'll create it in a way that they know their audience is going to engage with it. But, some might be happy to chuck up an image that they think will work for their audience. But beyond that, it's looking at how that influencer can create their own content which focuses on the brand or the product. But then they can also use stories to put up anything because they know that it's going to be gone in 24 hours. But you can say, do it for a week. post that for a week, even if it is on stories, because people engage with stories, and it's just a way to direct them again to the Instagram page. Does that answer your question? Okay. So I'm conscious now. Okay, so key considerations. I think we've just spoken about a lot. So I think the big thing is for you guys as merchants and small operators or medium operators. I don't know the level of business in this room, but if you were to look at engaging influencers, the key things to look at is reach and engagement, right? So if you are thinking about who to align with as an influencer, you've got to think about their following, how far or how wide reach they have, but more importantly, how engaged they are with their audience. So it is really about the content that they create to start the conversation, but then how do they continue that conversation through the platform? Yep.
What did you think of Roger Federer and
The quokka?
Yeah.
Look, I think that was a $1 million project. It was. Like, the Australian government or the West Australian government spent a lot of money on that particular campaign. And I know that because I spoke to someone recently about the production element of it. So that was quite staged. I think this whole quokka selfie thing is really cool because it puts Perth and Rottnest on a global a global scale or a global platform. But it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Because I guess for Western Australia, we want people like Roger Federer. Yeah, we want him to go to Rottnest and take a picture with a quokka, because then hopefully someone over in America or in the Netherlands or wherever will come and want to take a quokka selfie. A quokka selfie.
Better name.
A quokka selfie. But it really depends on what it is that you're trying to achieve. That's like, there was a huge production element behind that. And I think the beauty of influencer marketing is that it doesn't have to be so led by budget. You can engage an influencer for $500. And you can say, I align with you as an influencer. I love your tone. I love your aesthetic. I want, do you like my brand? Is this a brand that you would like to connect? Like, do you genuinely feel like you could use this brand in your life or your lifestyle? Would you mind creating some content on my behalf and posting it to your page, and I'll give you $500, and that's going to reach 30,000 people, because that 30,000 people locally means more to you than seeing a global campaign of Roger Federer taking a quokka selfie. Do you know what I mean? Yeah?
Just a query, like on a single product, would this
Yep.
work on a single product within a interested group?
What's your single product?
Well, I have a lemon squeezer.
Okay.
It's very unique because it's on the table as part of the table.
Yeah.
I've tried market, I've got my Shopify shop, but
Yeah.
it doesn't work because no one Googles
Lemon squeezers.
It's a second thing. So now I'm rethinking the whole thing, and I did think about influencers.
Yeah.
In like someone that's in the home cooking.
Totally. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Cooking school.
Perfect.
So I've got to come and see you.
Yeah, you've got to come and see the influencer agency. I'll hook you up with heaps of foodie influencers. And in cooking, because people go to Instagram because they want to figure out how to do it themselves. They want to learn what other people are doing.
Yeah,
So
my product isn't something that someone can think of until someone
shows. Yeah, they have to demonstrate what it does. They have to show. Exactly. It's perfect. Sorry.
Send it to Nigella.
Yeah. Totally.
You're talking about reach.
Yep.
How do you know that the influencer,
Has a genuine reach.
well, they've got 30,000 followers, how
Yeah.
do you know that half of those aren't 16-year-olds with money from?
Totally. I think the beauty now that we have, or the benefit that we have now, is access to Instagram analytics. And beyond that, there's so many data mining programs now that monitor who's engaging with that particular influencer. So it's interesting in that Instagram owns the data, so they won't publish the data beyond the analytics, which you need to engage the influencer to share their analytics with you. But there's lots of data mining programs that you have access to that shows the demographics of the audience that's engaging with that influencer on the other side. And then beyond that, you've got access to programs that tell you whether or not they've bought followers and whether or not they're credible. So there's lots of different. Yep.
We might actually, if it's all right.
Yeah, do I need to speed it up?
To the Q&A
Okay.
at the end, because then you can we'll have everyone on stage.
I'll get through it. I'm not
away,
getting through it.
otherwise we're gonna blow
Okay,
it over.
I'll just quickly go through this. So brand alignment. I think if you're considering influencers as a way to market your product, it's really important that you can identify those influencers as individuals that reflect your brand in a positive way.
Authentic.
Yeah, totally. That's really important. And once you've identified that, then you're essentially handing over your brand guidelines or your brand to that particular individual to say, create content because I know that you'll treat my brand in the way that I want it to be treated. But they are essentially the content creators. So they'll create their content in a way that they know their audience is going to engage with it. It's very difficult when you're trying to guide them in a way that they know is not going to get that kind of engagement that you want, because that's what the measurement of success is the engagement. So if you're trying to tell an influencer to treat the content in a particular way, you already know it's going to fall down. You have to align with that influencer first. You've got to appreciate them as an influencer and as a content creator, and have them create the content on your behalf. So delivering the message, I think I just wanted to put this one in here because I guess like any channel, influencer marketing is a way to connect with the desired audience and deliver the brand message effectively, right? But the difference here is that we're delivering it in a way that's like relatable, likable, it's engaging, it's not addy. And it's really hard for me to say that because my background is in advertising. And now I'm in this space where these guys are becoming the advertisers. It's really, but it shows how much the landscape has changed and how as brands and businesses we need to evolve to keep up with this changing landscape, to find out those new opportunities to advertise our brands. But it is really important that we understand this space and how that message needs to be delivered in order to drive that engagement around the content. And the effectiveness. So when engaging in influencer marketing, like any other channel or platform, it is really important to define what the success looks like. Because me managing these campaigns, it's really about understanding or managing the expectations of the client. If the client says to me, we want to, we've got this budget, we want to engage 4 influencers, it's like, okay, well, that's a pretty small pool, right? This is about reach. It's about dialogue. It's about delivering the message in a really wide way. So if we only engage 4 influencers, what can that success look like realistically? And it might just be exposure. It might just be talkability. It might just be creating dialogue in an area that perhaps you weren't present in before. And that's a perfect start. And then it looks at, okay, well, if that is if that's what success looks like, then how do we continue that conversation? How do we continue that dialogue? How do we continue to have our product present in a space that people can talk about it? So a key marker for success of effectiveness is determined through the level of interest and engagement the content attracts. So success would look like a post is uploaded or published, and all of a sudden you've got this flood of likes, comments, dialogue. That's what success looks like. You want people to engage with the content, engage with the brand, and just talk about it. And then naturally, if that happens, it's going to create interest and excitement around the brand, and people are then going to want to seek more information about the brand. And that's where that drive, that's where that conversion and that traffic or that diversion of traffic can happen. Because essentially what you're trying to do is you're engaging influencers because they have the reach, and you want their reach or you want their audience to then come over to your page. That's what you want to do. So, and that's where that conversion is in this space. because once they're following you, you become part of their feed every day. So then you've got to upload your stories, you've got to upload your content, so you're seen every day by these people. And it's really important because one of those stats that I had up there before, which I didn't talk about, was the stat that Instagram published recently, was that people under the age of 25 spend 32 minutes a day on Instagram. And do you know what? I was like, I'm just going to check my usage real quick. And I spent almost 2 hours in the last 24 hours on Instagram. And I get it, I'm in the space, like I'm on it all the time. But then I speak to my friends, I speak to the influencers, and they are on Instagram constantly. So it's really important to understand how to be active in a space where where your potential clients are active. And naturally, it's going to create that excitement and interest and drive and increase in traffic to your website or your sale or whatever you're trying to sell, whatever that message is that you're trying to deliver. Okay, learnings. All right, so my big thing is you've got to think long-term about this. It really, it's hard when people say, I want to engage an influencer. It's like, okay, cool, great. Just one post. There's no point. Like, there's actually no point. It's a consistent flow. It's got to be a consistent relationship. It has to be a consistent alignment. There needs to be an ongoing relationship there with that particular influencer because they're creating content on your behalf and it should be consistently. You've got to think about long-term how influencer marketing can be incorporated into your overall comms strategy, if you have one. Hopefully you do. Define the measurable objectives. So think about what success looks like and how you can measure it and what is ultimately the objective, and then you can work out how you can approach influencer marketing so it's successful. Chill, it's okay. I checked mine before. It was totally on loud. Don't worry. Identify influencers who are aligned with your brand and your audience. So it's really important to make sure that they're aligned with the brand, but they're actually speaking to the audience that you want to speak to. So like with your lemon squeezer, don't then engage an influencer who's about sports. It's irrelevant. So it's honey. No, I'm just joking. I'm totally joking. So it's about finding those influencers that are right for that particular product, and you know that they're actually connecting with the audience that you're trying to connect with. Be clear on the message that you want the influencer to deliver. So lemon squeezer, okay, squeezes lemons. Get them to deliver that message. Squeezes lemons. I don't know, but you've got to be clear on what you want that influencer to do. Repurpose the content. You're paying them to create content. They're publishing it to their own sites. Repurpose it. You can repurpose it all over wherever you want. You've paid for it. So put it on your EDMs, put it on your website. Wherever you want it to be, it's yours to use. Please repurpose it. It's amazing how many clients don't repurpose content that influencers create. It blows me away, but whatever. And then measure the effectiveness. So that looks at understanding that level of engagement that content attracted through that profile of influencer or that particular influencer. And then you can kind of gauge, okay, who's right to connect with going forward long term. And that's it.